I was trolling the internet the other day, like I do, and I came across a Mormon reacting to the South Park episode about Mormonism. Seemed interesting, so I figured I'd take a look, from an ex-Jehovah's Witness's perspective. So this is an ex-Jehovah's Witness reacting to a Mormon reacting to things. Yes, I stole that from Apologia, but he doesn't have a copyright on going meta as fuck. Anyways, let's get into it. There's a big long intro, so I'm not going to bother listening to it. Let's just get into the first clip.
The Book of Mormon? What's that?
You know, the book that Joseph Smith found.
Who's Joseph Smith?
Okay, so Joseph Smith found the Book of Mormon, but he didn't write it, guys. So I'm excited to see like what they're gonna say about it. Also, they've done analysis on the Book of Mormon and the different books that are in them, and they've proved that the actual books were written by 15 different authors because there's 15 different books in the Book of Mormon. Their writing styles are so different, and so Joseph Smith actually couldn't have written the entire Book of Mormon himself.
Who proved it was written by 15 different authors? Was it peer-reviewed by the wider scientific community, or was it just claimed by the Mormon Church? Now, I'm no literary analysis expert, far from it, but I do happen to know the history of the Book of Mormon. The idea, which we'll get into a little bit more later, is that Joseph Smith was told where to find some buried golden plates. He dug them up and found a seer stone there with them. Nobody ever saw the gold plates. He hid them from the public, and there was so much outrage and suspicion over the fact that nobody had ever seen them that he eventually had to do something about it. He got like 10 close friends and family members to sign a piece of paper saying, yeah, I saw the plates. They're 100% totally legit and not made up. So if they were in another language, how'd he translate them? Did the dude even speak another language, I hear you asking? Well, voice in my head, I'll give you his explanation. He says he used that seer stone that came with the plates to quote-unquote translate the plates. So there's a discrepancy between the official Mormon account of how he translated the plates and Joseph Smith's own descriptions. The Mormon Church, realizing how outrageous it is to believe that you can use a rock to translate an ancient book, claimed that the seer stone that came with the plates basically acted as glasses that he could put on, and when he looked at the gold plates, it would just appear in English through the glasses. But their story has changed over the years, and Joseph Smith gave different explanations. At one point, the commonly accepted explanation is that he threw a rock into a hat, put his face in the hat, and the rock told him what the Book of Mormon should say. The gold plates weren't even involved in that explanation. At another point, they said he would sit there at a table with a curtain between him and the actual writer, and he would dictate what the plate said to the person writing it on the other side, who, again, never saw the gold plates. There's a lot of weird stuff surrounding this story, but one thing I want to point out about this is the fact that this chick says there's been a literary analysis done on the books, and it's been proven that they were written by different authors. I haven't seen this literary analysis, and I can't imagine it's been reviewed by people outside the Mormon Church, but I would love it if the people doing the analysis would tell us why the Book of Mormon quotes the Bible, and in the verses it quotes, it contains errors from the King James Version of the Bible that Joseph Smith owned. Errors that were fixed later. For that matter, why is the entire Book of Mormon written in the same literary style as the King James Bible? This is supposed to be an ancient book from thousands of years ago, right? Joseph Smith didn't even speak like that. We had moved long past the Old English style of the King James Bible by the time Joseph Smith came along. Also, why is the Book of Mormon, a book supposedly translated in the 1800s, written with the literary style of the 1400s, but supposedly came from the 600s? It does not add up. Anyways, let's take a look at the next clip.
Only the most important person in the world.
Not true. He's not the most important person in the world. That is Jesus Christ. For sure, we do not worship Joseph Smith.
That's true enough, I guess. They would say that Jesus is the most important person in the world. Although Joseph Smith is extremely important in their theology. They have songs about him and everything. So don't let her downplay his importance in the religion. Let's continue.
There goes that kooky Joseph Smith. You know he claims he spoke with God and Jesus.
Well, how do you know he didn't?
Dum 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 dum.
That was good.
What? No, it's not good. This chick doesn't understand what a burden of proof is. And obviously the dumb joke is flying right over her head. Look, if somebody makes a claim, it's on them to prove it. I could claim that a pink dragon lives in my garage. You don't have to believe me by default. I have to prove it to you if I expect you to believe it. This is philosophy 101. That's why our court system in the US is set up the way it is. Innocent until proven guilty. The burden of proof is on the person making the claim. Joseph Smith claimed that he spoke to God. He needs to prove that to me. Until then, I'm not going to believe it. So no, that wasn't good. Next clip.
I am Moroni. I am a Native American.
A Native American? But your skin is white.
Yes, long ago all Native Americans were white. We all came to America from Jerusalem, and while we were here, we were visited by Christ.
Jesus
Very
lived
true.
here in America?
So we don't believe that Jesus lived in America. We believe that he came to the American continent, though. After his resurrection, he came and visited the people that were here, because there was people on the American continent, and that's where we believe the Book of Mormon came from. It's the ancient writings from the people who lived here on the American continent. So we use the Bible and the Book of Mormon, guys. They just complement each other. And but yeah, so I mean, they got the ancient Moroni guy, right? He was Native American.
Nope, he wasn't Native American. You still haven't proven he even existed. This is no different than me telling you I have a pink dragon in my garage. Saying it a billion times and writing a book about it doesn't lend it credibility. Prove it to me. Any credible proof. Any. I'll take anything. Now about the claim that Native Americans are actually Israelites that came to America thousands of years ago. No, that is the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. In fact, DNA testing has proven that Native Americans aren't related to Israelites at all. They're most closely related to Asians. There's a book written by Jeremy Runnels called the CES Letter. It was originally a letter to the Mormon Church with a big list of questions that debunked the claims of the church. One of those questions was, DNA analysis has concluded that Native American Indians do not originate from the Middle East or from Israelites, but rather from Asia. Why did the church change the following section of the introduction page in the 2006 edition of the Book of Mormon, shortly after the DNA results were released? They changed the intro page from the Lamanites, and they are the principal ancestors of the American Indians, to the Lamanites, and they are among the ancestors of the American Indians. So up to that point, 2006, until they had DNA analysis, the Book of Mormon claims that Native Americans were descendants of Israelites. Remember, this book was supposed to have been written in the year 500 or 600, inspired by God, who knows everything, and then translated by a single mouthpiece for God. How could they have possibly gotten that wrong? The fact that they went in and changed it after the fact should show that somebody in the organization knows it's all made up. I don't know who exactly, but one of them must. To be fair, the Mormon Church did issue a response about the DNA analysis. Basically, their response was, at the time, they thought those groups of Native Americans were the only ones that existed. So what they're saying is, God was unaware that there were other unrelated groups of people in the region, and he was also unaware that those people would eventually take over the area and the Israelite descendants would die out without a trace. Because we've never found a shred of evidence to imply that tribes of Native Americans descended from Israel. That is absurd. Let's continue.
You gotta put these cult people in their place or else they never stop.
Okay, we are not a cult. Look at the definition of a cult. They follow a person. We don't follow I mean, any religion would be considered a cult. We all follow a person. We follow Jesus Christ. So, I mean, we're no different than any other church in that sense. We're not a cult. I love when people call it a cult because it's like, then that would make all religions cults. We literally just follow Jesus Christ. We don't follow Joseph Smith. We don't worship him.
Now we're in my territory. Let's talk about whether or not the Mormon Church is a cult. This is probably going to take up the rest of the video. She's using a specific definition of a cult, and the only reason I know what she's talking about is because I was told the exact same thing by Jehovah's Witnesses. Unless you were involved in a cult at some point in your life, you probably haven't heard this definition. When I was a Jehovah's Witness, the guy I was studying with to get baptized addressed the question before it was even raised. He pulled out the dictionary and read the definition. It said, a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. Well, there you go. Case closed. We aren't a cult. We worship Jesus, and every Christian religion worships Jesus, so we aren't a cult, right? That's what she's talking about here. And that's what my study buddy was talking about when I was getting baptized. In reality, the definition of cult isn't that simple. There's a group called ICSA, or the International Cultic Studies Association, who's worked to define religious cults for decades. They have a checklist that's used in courtrooms to determine if something is a a cult or not. They've existed since 1979 as the American Family Foundation and were renamed to ICSA in 2004. Stephen Hassan has been talking about cults since the 80s, and I've been talking about and researching them for 4 years. So what makes the Mormon Church a cult? Usually I like to use the BITE model for this, but the ICSA model is perfectly valid too. Let's just take a glance at the BITE model. BITE is an acronym that stands for Behavior Control, Information Control, Thought Control, and Emotion Control. Each category has its key points. For behavior control, the key point is whether or not the group has a system of rewards and punishments to modify the members' behavior, basically programming in a cult personality. It's distinctly different from their authentic personality. When they talk about the group or when they regurgitate standard cult answers to tough questions, you can see their eyes glaze over. The next section is information control. The key point behind this is whether or not the cult is trying to control a narrative. The Mormon Church definitely does this. Just look at this video. We have objective information about the origins of the Mormon Church, and every few minutes she's interjecting with quote-unquote corrections in perspective or facts.
And they said I should start my own church because
You should not start your own church. That was not what they said. They said that the Church of Jesus Christ needed to be restored. Restored just basically means to take something and like restore it to its original form, to take the church and restore it back to how Jesus Christ had it when he was on the earth. So Joseph Smith didn't start a new religion. He just restored Jesus Christ Church. He's just another prophet.
The next section is thought control. Do they want you to think that you have the full truth, the only truth, and you have some kind of elite status as a result? You want to bring others into the fold so they can have the full truth too. People who refuse are pitied to some extent. There's a strong us versus them attitude. With Jehovah's Witnesses, we were expected not to make friends with outsiders. Now, I know Mormons are a little more relaxed on that specific front, but they definitely use thought control to a disturbing degree. The final section is emotional control. Do they try to teach you emotion-stopping techniques to prevent anger and homesickness? Do they try to separate you from your life and to make you completely dependent on the church, like, say, on missions, for example? Doing that kind of thing forces the member to trust the church inherently. Placing your life in their hands and following their strictly regimented schedule forces you to build trust for the group. The Mormon Church is a cult. I'm sorry. That's just what it is. I know it's not pleasant information to swallow, but dodging it is only hurting you in the end. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can check out my Etsy store. I sell all kinds of interesting and useful stuff on there, not least of which is these signs that will keep Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses away. If it doesn't keep Mormons away as planned, it'll at least make for some interesting conversation when they knock. Also, check me out on Patreon. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.